All right, so now that we have multi-account set up and we have our basic root account secured, I want to help improve your security a bit more by turning on some services that are extremely ineffective and only you get a lot of value out of if you turn them on day one, okay? Because we need these services to run to collect information so we can take action on them in the future. Had we used Control Tower to set up our AWS account, some of these might have already been configured for us. And that's okay that we're not using Control Tower. And I think it's great to get some hands-on experience turning these things on ourselves so we understand these services. And the services I'm talking about today is CloudTrail, GuardDuty, AWS Config, Security Hub, and VPC Flow Logs. Now, we're not going to turn on all these services, but most of them we are. And the first one I want you to look at is CloudTrail, okay? And so what we're going to do, and right now I'm logged into my administrator account in my master account, okay? As you can see here, we're just going to switch back to our original account. So I'm going to go back to Andrew Brown here, okay? So I'm in my master account. And this is where I'm going to want to turn on CloudTrail, okay? So what I want you to do is go up to services here, type in CloudTrail, okay? And we'll arrive here at CloudTrail. So CloudTrail, I always think of this service, it's a great way of knowing who to blame. So if something happens in your account, someone starts an EC2 instance or they create a new S3 bucket, it's going to get logged here. So I always think of it as a way of blame. You know, if you're trying to figure out who to blame, if your developers started up a server and it got really expensive, you need to figure out who did it, this is where you're going to look, okay? Now the thing with CloudTrail is that it only looks at the last 30 days or 90 days by default. And so to capture information beyond that 90 days, you actually have to manually create a trail. But there's also another catch. When you have this, it's not tracking everywhere. And so the idea is that on AWS, you can have multiple accounts and then you have multiple regions where resources are running. And so the idea is that we want to capture all that information no matter where we are, okay? Because we don't want to leave any blind spots. Otherwise, if someone came into our account, they could do some nasty things and we might not notice. So again, in your account here, we're gonna, in the master account, I'm going to go ahead here and hit click create trail, okay? And I'm going to just create this as, my master cloud trail, okay? I want you to notice a few things here. It says apply trail to all regions, which we're going to want yes. Apply trail to my organization, which we're going to want yes. That means we're going to have visibility throughout our entire account. And if we just scroll down here, there's a few other options. We're going to leave these alone, these management events. Then we have data events. We're going to leave this alone. So I think that's everything. Usually we have to specify an S3 bucket. We might have to specify here. Yeah, we do. So I'm just going to say CloudTrail logs. And this name has to be unique, just like a domain name. So I'm just going to say ExamPro Startup CloudTrail logs, so I don't have any conflicts here. And now we've created our trail. And so that's all you really have to do to make sure you have that visibility. It is a little bit difficult to make sense of this information, but the time that you do have to look at it, you're going to be really glad that you did turn this on. So that was the first one, CloudTrail. And so we'll move on next to GuardDuty. I want you to go up to services here and type in GuardDuty, if I can spell it right. And what GuardDuty is, it's for detecting intrusions within your AWS account, okay? So it's going to continuously monitor your AWS environment for suspicious activity. And it's very inexpensive to turn on at this stage. And you definitely want to turn this on day one, because if there's something funny going on in your account, it's like having a security engineer who's going to alert you of stuff, okay? And all you got to do is hit get started, and we're just going to hit enable GuardDuty. And so GuardDuty is now turned on. Now the thing with GuardDuty is that it's per region. I believe that it's turned on, and also it's not in all of our accounts. So we've turned GuardDuty on in our master account, but it's not necessarily in our development and production. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to send the findings to this account here. And so what we can do in GuardDuty is they have this option here in the accounts where we can just add ones, and this is where we're going to enter in our information. So I believe I have this nice little file here that has our account IDs, and we're going to go through here and just add them here, okay? So we'll go there, and then I'm just going to add email of account contacts. So we're going to say Andrew plus startup. Which account was that? Developers. So that's going to be dev.exampro.co. And then the next one here is going to be the prod. So we're going to do Andrew startup plus at exampro.co. And we're going to hit next. And these two accounts are added. So the idea is that we are inviting these accounts so that they're going to send their guard duty information over to us. So we're going to have to go take a look and get this configured. So just because we've set these up doesn't mean that we're tracking data in those accounts. So that's the next step. All right, so I was waiting around to see when those emails would come in, but they never did. But there is a way for you to accept the invitation. And so what I've done is I've gone into one of my other accounts here. This one is the dev account. And in the same region, this is really important, in the same region. So here I'm in Ohio and I'm in Ohio. I'm gonna hit get started. You're gonna see on the left-hand side that I have an invitation. And I can accept that invitation, but I must enable guard duty first. So we're gonna go here and enable guard duty in our dev account. And then we're going to hit accept. And so now the idea is that all of our data is going to go into this master account. And we're going to want to do that for production. All right. So the only thing with guard duty, though, is that for it to be effective, you need to turn it on in all the regions that you're operating in. So if you drop down Ohio and you go to North Virginia, what you're going to notice is that you have to enable guard duty again. So it's very, very important that wherever you are launching your servers and your operating stuff is where it's being utilized. And one other thing I want to point out is you're seeing like this 30-day free trial thing, which makes you kind of think that guard duty is expensive. It's not. It's very, very inexpensive, especially when you're only running in a few regions. And I'll have to like pull up the pricing here, but it's based on like your usage. So if you don't have a lot of usage, you're not going to have a lot of expenses. So I utilize this. And I have a good amount of traffic, and I maybe pay pennies. So just don't worry about expenses there for guard duty. You definitely want to turn it on, and you're definitely going to want to turn it on in the same regions as accounts and link them up. All right, so we're going to move on to VPC flow logs, and this is in your VPC. So we go to VPC here, and once we get here, every AWS account gets VPCs created for you by default. VPC stands for virtual private cloud, and it's basically your own virtual network to launch your resources within. And so if I just go in here and there's a tab called flow logs, you're going to see that there are no flow logs created. So what is the purpose of flow logs? Well, the idea is that when you have a website, you're going to have traffic flowing into your VPC to your servers, all right? And what a flow log does is it captures the IP traffic that is flowing into your network. Okay, and so by turning this on, what you're going to get is, let's say you become a very large website and all of a sudden you start having strange behaviors occurring on your platform, or you have strange traffic. Well, flow logs is going to collect all the information, help you identify anomalies or suspicious behavior. In fact, guard duty, which we turned on, uses VPC flow logs. So if you don't have this turned on, it's not going to be able to analyze traffic. Okay, so but generally when you launch things on AWS, you're going to be using the default VPC, and so you can just turn on your flow logs here. So here I'm in Ohio. I'm going to hit the create flow logs here, and I'm going to set it to all. I want all, both rejected and accepted traffic. And it can be set to CloudWatch logs or S3 bucket. I'm going to let it go to CloudWatch logs because that seems fine to me. And it seems like I need to create one here. Maybe I just have to fill in the name. The IAM role have permissions to publish, set up permissions. Okay, so I'll just click that there. Maybe they're going to make it a little bit easier for me there. Okay, great. So I'll just hit allow. Okay, and then I'm going to go back here. And we'll just hit refresh. And I now have that there. I don't have a log group. That's not too hard to figure out. So we'll just go to CloudWatch over here. And we're going to go to logs, log groups. Create a log group. And we'll just say flow logs. And so I can go back here, do a refresh. And we will go ahead there and create that. And so now that's going to capture all your flow log or all your IP traffic information. And this is something, again, you wouldn't think about it until you run into a problem. It's very inexpensive to turn on, and it's something you want to turn on day one. So that's VPC flow logs. And I think you'll have to turn that on per region or per VPC, sorry. So like, let's say I go to North Virginia here, and I'm going to go take a look at this VPC here, and I go to flow logs, you're gonna see there is no flow log, so you'd have to go in there and create it. And again, it's like region specific, so I'd have to make a new log group, but I can use the same role there. Okay, so that's just really important that people don't realize that, you know, there's multiple regions and you sometimes have to repeat these actions. So that's VPC flow logs. Okay, and so the next thing I want to talk about for security, and this is optional, but it's something I want you to become familiar with, which is AWS config. So I'm going to go back into Ohio since that's where we've been mostly doing all of our stuff here, and AWS seems to want to put me in Ohio, but we will go and type in config. Okay, and so config, it says AWS config provides inventory of your AWS resources, a history of configuration changes to these resources. This is the part we care about, changes to our resources. So the idea is that you're saying, this is how I expect my stuff to be set up. And then when a change occurs, it can alert you saying, hey, this thing changed. Maybe you didn't want it to change, or it can auto remediate, which means put it back into the state that you expect it to be. So if you have some kind of compliance that you need to keep, so like let's say you have to keep your servers always encrypted, you can use AWS config rule to do that. But here I am in config, and there's a bunch of stuff, and I know it looks really complicated, but the trick is you just hit next. And now we can see our config rules that we can choose from, but we're just gonna skip that for now because we just want to get this activated. Because once you turn on AWS config, this will take a few seconds, so we'll wait here in a moment. Okay, so once we have it turned on, the great advantage here is that AWS config is going to give you a list of all your resources. And usually it would show up here. I don't know why it's not showing up. I'll just do refresh. Oh, sorry, it just says our resources are being discovered. So we're going to have to wait a little while here. But while that's taking some time, we're just going to go here and hit add rule. And so the idea here is that we have a bunch of different pre-made rules, and we make our own rule. The idea is to constantly enforce configurations that we want to keep the same. So I'm just going to browse through here and take a look here and try to find one that's simple. So look at this one, CloudTrail enable. So we enabled CloudTrail earlier, but what this rule does is it checks to make sure that it is enabled. So it checks whether AWS config is enabled in your AWS account. And optionally, you can specify which S3 bucket, etc. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. I'm going to hit save. And what it's going to do is it's going to evaluate, and it's going to tell me whether if we're compliant or if we're not compliant, right? Because if CloudTrail was turned off and a hacker got into our system, we would have no visibility of what happened. So it's very important that we have some guarantee that we know that things are as we expect them to be. So that is essentially AWS config in a nutshell. I'm going to go back up here. We still don't see any resources here, but generally this would just list out everything. So if you had some EC2 instances or whatever you created, you get like this nice inventory list, which is a great way to see what's actually in your account. Now AWS config again is region specific. So if I go to North Virginia, I bet I have to turn it on there. Yep. So that's another thing. So you're only going to get visibility in the region that you turn it on. So that's AWS config. And I guess we'll move on to Security Hub next. All right, just before we move on to Security Hub, I just want to show you that that rule that we turned on here is now compliant. It only took a few minutes here, and you can now see you have a green bar. Okay, so when you turn on all these rules, you're going to have a big green bar here, and if they become non-compliant, then you will see a red bar, and it'll help you figure out where misconfiguration has happened, or maybe something malicious has happened within your account. But now let's move on to Security Hub. So we'll go up the top here and type in Security Hub. And we'll be over here. And so I'm just going to click Go to Security Hub here. And so the idea with Security Hub is that it's going to take a bunch of your security services that are turned on AWS and logging information to give you this overall view. Okay, because we just turned on CloudTrail, we turned on AWS config, we turned on GuardDuty. You can have findings within CloudWatch. There's a lot of services where we can consolidate this information to get a better picture of what's going on in our account. So if you have AWS credits, I would 100% turn this on. If you don't have AWS credits and you want to save money, you can just leave this off for the time being. But let's go ahead and just enable this in our account. All right, and so it's going to pull in findings from all these services, whichever ones you decide to use. And the cool part about it here is that if you need to meet a certain compliance standard, so here we have the CIS AWS foundations. The idea is, and I assume that they're going to have more because even though there's only one box, but there's a bunch of different compliance standards out in the industry. And the idea is if you want to work in health or you want to work in government or you want to work in certain industries, they're going to have certain compliance rules. And so AWS is working to help you meet those requirements so that you can quickly launch your startups so you can capture those markets. Okay, so that's Security Hub, and again, one click to turn it on, so there's no reason not to. And already we're getting value out of it. So here it's saying we have 38 non-compliant rules. So I'm gonna just click into that and see what it's talking about. So right away, here's all the rules that it has set up for us. So you can see here, avoid the use of the root account. So that's one rule. Ensure IAM password policy requires at least one symbol. So remember, we had password policy and we didn't turn it on. I showed it to you and I said you should turn this on. So here, this is Security Hub nagging you saying, hey, you should turn these things on. But they have a lot of great default rules here, okay? And actually, I turned off MFA when you weren't looking. And here you can see it's complaining saying you have this root account, but you're not using MFA. So once you have all these, then you're going to be in really good shape in terms of security. So that's just something to consider. I think these are AWS config rules. So if we go back over here and click here, you can see that they made those rules for us. So this is the hidden cost with Security Hub. Like the service itself doesn't cost a lot, but the idea is that it can spin up a lot of config rules, and then these can add up very quickly. It's not a lot of money, but again, if you are utilizing the free tier and you really don't have a lot of money, you might just want to keep Security Hub off until you are making money. And I think that, again, this is region specific. So if I go to US East North Virginia, yeah. Oh, sorry, we're in AWS config. Let's go over to Security Hub. But I'm pretty certain, yeah, you have to turn on region. So it doesn't seem super expensive, but if you are running in multiple regions, you have to turn this on and it's creating a bunch of little things. Those pennies can add up into dollars or into tens of dollars. So it's just a consideration there. But again, if you have AWS credits, don't even think about it, turn it on. So I think that's pretty much the gambit of security things that I would recommend that you turn on day one. But there's always more to learn with security. But yeah, there you go.